ChatGPT,
Right.
it's revolutionizing the way we work. And some people see it as an issue, some people don't. I use it all the time. It speeds up me answering emails like nobody's business. But there are a lot of industries where people are scared that ChatGPT can take their jobs. And that is a very real fear. So it's just about us adapting and understanding our development as humans and how to work with this technology rather than being consumed by the technology.
Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready because we are going above the legal limit. Hey, welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm Justin Chopin. Super excited about our guest today, Kati LeBreton. I did it right.
You got it.
I did it right this time.
You got
All
it.
right. Yeah, everybody gets one. She is here today. We're going to talk about digital wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your company, the Redhead Method.
Mm-hmm.
Redheaded Method?
Redhead Method.
Redhead
yes.
Method. Okay.
Which is really funny. I was struggling when I first started on what to call it. And I'm like, what do I want to call it? You don't want to just have something generic and everyone, whether they knew my first name or not my whole life, would just call me Red or Redhead, whether
Okay.
I liked it or not.
Right.
And so, and my approach to digital wellness is very different and it is methodical. And so I said, you know what? That sounds really cool together, Redhead Method. And when you hear it, you know exactly who you're talking about. So
I like it.
It works out. But I'm a digital habits educator. And essentially, I'm a speaker for hire. I go in person or I do things virtually, but I work with people of all ages and stages on how to participate in the online space in a positive way. I'm not necessarily someone who helps you with social media marketing or digital marketing, although I have done that in my past. But I noticed in my past careers, I worked in college football and I worked in higher education, that a lot of the people I worked with, especially young people, participated so much in the digital space on social media, but they did not have proper habits in place to do it correctly and were developing habits that were bleeding into their everyday life. And so I decided to take those experiences and my experience in higher education, I have 2 degrees in communication, and made this methodological curriculum that I can go in. I work with schools, companies, private institutions.
Very cool.
Teams, but how to develop good habits when you are online, because we can't get away from it. We have to participate online in today's society. There's no way getting around it.
You're going to see this online?
Yeah.
So this is a big hot topic in my family right now because I've got 2 kids. How
old are they?
So I was going to say, fortunately, they're 7 and 8.
Okay.
So I'm not in it yet. I'm in the shit, don't get me wrong, but not for this. But we're reading this book, The Anxious Generation.
I was going to say that has influenced me so much, and it really speaks to all of the problems that are coming to fruition that we see now with our young people can be kind of traced back to the birth of social media in the digital age.
It is here. It's a great tool. I love being able to, I'm on the older side. I'm on the Facebook side, right? So I only started Instagram probably about a year ago because I read a news article about somebody who was hiking the Appalachian Trail, and I love hiking. And they were like, you can follow them on Instagram. And prior to that, I would have been like, I don't understand it. It looks like it's the same as Facebook. It's just, and I still maintain it's the same thing. But especially now, right? If you post on one, it automatically goes, it is the same thing, people. But that's where I got my Instagram from, was because I just wanted to follow this person who, and then once I got it, then I was on it. But so this is a big thing in our house because I remember a day practicing law before there was an iPhone. And Facebook was on a computer and not on.
And you had to have a .edu email to even get a Facebook.
Right.
Yep.
It was for schools. And so so I talk about this a lot, when you would get in the elevator to go up, in those days I was across the street on the 45th floor. It's a long elevator ride. What did you do? You
had to talk to people.
You talk to people, right? You'd be like, see the game last night? I don't know. And then because you would talk to people, then you kind of knew the people. And so you didn't have to make small talk. You legitimately had oh, hey, Bill, saw you at lunch yesterday. How was that? I've been wanting to go. Whatever. Now, so then the BlackBerry became there, but there really wasn't enough to do on the BlackBerry. So like you could bury your head in it for a second, but the functionality just wasn't there. You fast forward now.
We have, I call them pocket-sized supercomputers.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
So you get in an elevator now, I know you. I know you. There's no reason for me not to strike up a conversation with you, but you don't want me to talk to you, and I don't want to talk to you, and I just put my head down on my phone because that's the more comfortable thing to do, or it's early, or I'm stressed out, or whatever the reason is, and it is so unhealthy. And so I say, like, I'm trying to break this habit. I'm not trying to break the habit. It's it's like
I like getting buried in my phone sometimes. It's safe there.
But I've heard, but we talk about it a lot in our house because we are very committed to this idea that our kids will not have smartphones.
So happy
until they have.
That's so good.
Until we get broken. My kids, they were asking me about it. The day before, it was over the weekend on Sunday. We were driving, and they're like, Daddy, yeah. And they're like, well, so and so in my school, he's got one, and he's in the 7th grade. And I was like, well, different families have different rules. I'm going to tell you right now. So I was like, you're asking me for an iPhone right now. I was like, nah, I'm just telling you, like, you're going to get really disappointed when I tell you this, but that is never going to happen.
Right.
And I stand by it. Maybe I'll change my mind in the next 10 years. I don't think, or whatever, 8 years. I don't think I'm going to, when they're in high school, maybe whatever. But I think it is a great tool, and I think it is one of the best things that has come, in this period of this century, I guess you want to call it, greatest innovation, and is one of the worst things ever.
It is a blessing and a curse. And when you were talking, there's so many different directions that we could go. So there was a couple of points that I wanted to hit. First, I want to commend you on standing strong and not caving. Every family's different. And parents ask me all the time, when should I get my child a cell phone, or should I at all? Let me preface this by saying I don't have kids. I'm not telling anybody how to raise their kids or
Would
judge
you like
them.
To? I can get you
I'm a little scared.
I know. I meant like two. Like, would you like two children? I've got a 7 and 8-year-old.
Can I give them back?
No.
Okay, so it's a permanent
we
situation.
Stamp out once they're out.
But I don't want to tell people how to raise their kids. I'm simply a third party who has this knowledge that is trying to help you live your life a little bit better. One thing that you mentioned that all parents all the time is, my kids and I argue about this all the time, or this is constantly a point of contention in my house, whether they're asking me for it, I say no, or they have it and I think they're on it too much, whatever it may be. And this is something that I cover a lot in my workshops, is this generational gap, or this generational battle that we have with technology, but specifically social media use or any kind of participatory thing that we do on the phone, whether it's like Roblox or TikTok, where you participate online with other people.
What is Roblox?
Roblox is a game that kids play on the computer where you talk to other people.
I had no idea.
I don't know what it is, but it's very popular. I'm told when I go to schools, that's what kids talk about.
Talk about Roblox. Right.
But where that tension lies is in our generations, meaning I'm 33 years old, so I am a millennial. I could not be more millennial if I tried.
Super
right?
Sure.
What generation are you, if you don't mind me asking?
So I'm an ex-cusper. So I'm 79. I speak both languages.
Yeah. So you're on the. So let's talk about your experience as a child, whether it's the age your children are or teenagers, when it came to technology.
Yeah.
When you were in school, how did you write a research paper? How did you do research?
Well, you did. Well, when I was in grade school, you hand wrote it. My grandmother had an old typewriter, so if it was a real big deal, you could pull the typewriter out and
So you couldn't Google anything.
No Google.
Right.
We had encyclopedias. Because
for kids listening, that's a physical book that you have to get open and touch. Right.
We had the World Book. We were very fancy.
Yeah.
We had a computer. It was an Apple IIe. But we didn't have any software for it, so it didn't do anything. It just sort of sat there. And that's it. As I progressed from grade school into high school, CD-ROMs came out, and then.
Do they even have those anymore?
I mean, now you would just call it a DVD.
Right.
So and we do, so we'll do that around here for the firm. If I get if I get 100,000 pages of medical records, I may store that on a DVD, or if I need to ship that off,
Yeah.
I may not want to, maybe you could do that on Dropbox. Maybe if I don't like you, I'll just put it on a DVD and make it your problem. I didn't say that.
Figure it out.
Totally said that. If you ever get a DVD from me with medical records, you know that they're like, oh man, piss Justin off. So I'm like, I'm not even going to waste a thumb drive on this.
Right.
So, but then, CD-ROMs came out and they had the encyclopedia on the CD-ROM. Okay, it's still pretty limited. I didn't know about Google until I was in college.
Right.
So the computer screens that we had when I was in college, we're still, like the school software, the school email. We had a school email. No one used it. There was nothing to do with it. But it was a black screen with green letters.
Yep.
So so totally different perspective, But I do think there was a great lie that came out in the early aughts. It was a huge lie, and it was a mistake, and it was misinformed, and it went like this. Our kids are going to be so good at computers that they're going to be able to compete on such a higher level because they're growing up with this technology. And it's bullshit.
Yep.
I didn't grow up with
agree.
any of that stuff. And guess what? I built out the IT systems for my law firm, and I'm no genius. Okay, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a scientist here. It is nonsense. This idea that we've got to get our kids in the computers now because somehow that they're magically going to become computer geniuses is insane. I mean, there are those people, like there are the Bill Gates of the world. There are the Steve Jobs of the world.
Born to do that.
Yes. And if you are a savant, if you are a child prodigy of coding, fine, whatever, go do your thing. But if you're just like a kid messing around, this ridiculous I still hear, I'll hear from my parents' generation. They're the ones that like really fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. They're like, our grandkids, I'm giving them these iPads and they're going to be geniuses on the computer. And it was just a misplaced emphasis in my opinion.
And that difference in what we grew up with is exactly where this like tension, this misinformation comes from. Because when parents come to me and they say, this is a constant argument in my household, help me, how do I fix it? It's like we have to think about when you grew up, you had a totally different experience.
Sure.
Your social interaction ended the second you stepped off the school bus at home. You did not talk to your friends again until the next day. Your kids can get in touch with their friends 24/7, 365. Every party they don't get invited to, they know when it's happening. They can be contacted at any time. They have access to any information about anything that's ever existed at their fingertips. And so one side, our generations and older, are saying things like, I didn't have a phone when I grew up and I'm just fine. But then our children are saying, but this is all I know. I don't know anything else. And it's killing me and we don't know it, or I don't know how to relate to you about it because it's not my fault I was born in the time I was born, and now to exist, we have supercomputers everywhere.
Sure.
And so it's a very hard line to toe because parents have to raise their kids in this digital age. I think that's partly why I don't have kids yet. I commend anybody who is raising kids now. It is hard. Your parents did not have to deal with this. Their parents did not have to deal with this. And it's uncharted territory. No one knows what they're doing. And our kids are having to deal with these repercussions of technology that does make our lives so much easier and it does solve so many problems and connect us. But on the flip side, we have not adapted to the behaviors that we've built around this technology. And so that's what the redhead method is really about, is that this technology is not going away.
No.
So let's learn how to live with it in a positive way and see it as and you mentioned this earlier, it is a tool. And that's what we need to think of these things as. They are tools, which I want to talk about the 3 T's, but I don't want to jump ahead of you. The 3 T's is a huge part of what the redhead method is.
Well, let me just say, the last bit on this is I'm perfectly prepared, as is my wife. We've talked about this, and we are Team Chopin here. If my kids see this, well, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be on the, I'm prepared to have my kids hate me over this. That's fine. Like everybody's got some beef with their parents about something. So
Right.
I'm fully
You're okay
prepared
for it to be
take
this,
the heavy
yes.
on this and just be like, yeah, my cousins grew up, they didn't have a cable. right? And it was always like a bone of contention with their parents, right? No, they didn't have HBO. We had HBO. Okay, great. You know, they got over it. I'm fully prepared to just be like, I hate my dad because he won't do it. Fine, so be it. One day, you know, maybe it's a long time from now, you won't, maybe you'll feel differently. And if not, and I was wrong, oh well, could have been worse, you know?
Right.
So, but there's another element to it that, you know, when we talk about kids that we're missing, and that is, it's not just kids. So I was really embarrassed. This happened to me recently. If you're scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, and you see this advertisement for a video game that looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, right? It's like a little guy, and you're shooting the nut, and it's all math. And so I was like, oh, that's fun. Like, I want to do and I was like, oh,
quick math, yeah.
Right, no, that'll keep my brain healthy.
Yeah.
Right, and it's just like you're shooting the numbers, or you've got to like make your way through this like mathematical scheme of like, you know, divide that by 2 times 3, and then you have enough men to then like defeat the zombies, right? So I downloaded the game. You know, maybe I was bored one day, you know, and I just was sort of playing it. And it starts off a very watered down version of whatever the ad is. But then it becomes very clear, like once you've done like these 5 steps, that's really not the game. The game is actually this online network of all these other people around the world. I was on like an alliance with a bunch of Canadians who were all very nice.
Right.
You know, I got a bunch of Brazilians got mad at me because I like attacked their truck for their gold. And I was totally, and then you see these other people, like it's all a money-making scheme, right? So they are investing enormous amounts of money to be like the biggest, you know, baddest sort of player on this thing. I mean, when you go, I went and looked it up, and these guys are investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in their profile to play this silly game. I was playing for free, like so that is where I drew the line. I was like, well, no, I'm not buying this. But still, I got to this point where I was like the top 3rd person in my like 100 people. And I looked at, you know, iPhone does this thing now, which I think is great. It's like your screen time is up. And they're like, hey,
it's been up 25% since last week.
Week over week. And I found myself, it was like the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning was check and make sure, It's the last thing I did before I went to bed. It was what I did on my lunch break. It was what you know, if you're, you know, like be real, like you're in the bathroom or you're, oh, shit, I'd be at a red light and be like, oh man, I better get that. And then I was like, I'm going to leave this alliance. We're going to go to this other alliance. We're doing all these things. You know, you're like emailing these people, and you're so wrapped in this ridiculousness. And I, for a minute, had this thought. So I Googled, right? I Googled, like, I feel like I'm addicted to this game. And like a Reddit feed came up, which is another thing that I was like, Reddit, I don't really do that. But anyway, you know, this has a point. And so, I promise. And then the first Reddit feed that came up was somebody was like, oh my God, I had to delete this game. I was completely wrapped up in this online community, which is completely meaningless. And I'm spending all of my time and energy on this fake life and not even living my own life.
Right.
And right then and there, I was like, oh my God, I have to stop playing this game. But I was like, I deleted the game right then and there. I just left all my stuff, left all my assets, you know, I left all the people wondering like, well, hey, where did XYZ avatar name go? Where did this guy go?
Yeah.
And I deleted the game, and for 2 weeks, I was just like reaching for my phone all the time, right? And I was really embarrassed. Like I am mid-40s, I'm educated, right? I have a very full life. You know, I'm running a business, I'm running a law firm, I'm running a family, I've got 2 kids. I am too busy.
You don't have time to pillage a fictional math village in
Yes.
like this made-up world. Yeah.
Right. And so we are all susceptible to this. We are all addicted to this. My kids, my son really, you know, he pulls at the heartstrings. He'll just be like, you know, Daddy, you don't always have to be looking like this on your phone. And I'm like, all right, well.
It's like, shoot, they are watching me. Shoot, yeah.
Shut up.
Right.
You know, so it's not just kids, it's adults too, and it bleeds into business. And
what
this
I
is,
call
you
that
know,
is this idea of it's the monetization of FOMO.
Sure.
That's
I suffer
what
from FOMO big
every social media site is, every online game, any community that is online or even in real life, but that is what keeps the monster of social media being fed is that FOMO.
Yeah.
That is the only reason we post stuff on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. We don't want to be left out.
Right.
And when we're not participating, we feel like we're missing something. And that it feeds on those chemicals in our brain that we want to participate. Because as humans, we're not built to be alone. We're built to be in a community.
Yeah.
And COVID exacerbated this so much. And it's that monetization of FOMO where those game developers, the designers of these apps, they know that.
Right.
And so they push these little, hey, don't miss out on this. Don't be the only person without this. Don't.
Right.
And so you don't want to feel like you're left out. And so we have to see these things for what they are, like the realization that you had, like, this is literally just a game. This is just an app. Why am I on this hours a day?
Right. I've got a 2-page to-do list.
Right. Why
for things on the business,
am I wasting my
I'm sitting here
time?
battling a stupid fake zombie.
Yes.
Well, I got real zombies that I need to be battling right now.
And that in itself is not bad. You know, playing a game on your phone is not inherently bad, which that
in and of itself it's not.
Right. And this is a perfect segue into the 3 T's, which is what the redhead method, if you boiled it down to one concept, it's this. Anytime we are using a device or we are online, we can only be doing one of 3 things at a time, and these are 3 T's. The first is that we are using this device as a tool. So your laptop, you're emailing back a client, you're calling someone back, you're putting a GPS in your phone to get to where you have to go, you're ordering groceries on whatever, I'm a Walmart Plus gal, you know, whatever it may be. You're using it to accomplish a task. That's not bad. That is what these tools are built for in this day and age.
Yeah, my kids were like in awe when I was talking about, you know, in the old days.
I love like Chat
GPT. I had to print out a map to tell, right? I'd go to MapQuest and we'd print it out, and then you know, so that I could find my way anywhere.
As you're driving, right? It is a tool. The second T is toy, which a lot of people inherently think that is bad. Not necessarily. The human experience, we are built to consume content or be entertained. It is okay for you to do something that you find enjoyable, that brings you joy. So if for you that is sitting in the bathtub with a glass of wine and watching cat videos, that's me. If that is my form of self-care, that is okay. Now, if I'm in there for 4 hours,
which is easy to do,
right, and I'm avoiding my life, that's when it's a problem. But a toy is not bad. Your kids wanting to play a game on a phone or wanting to take silly pictures, that is okay. It is when you're doing it when you should be doing other things, it is bad. The third T is what most people get caught doing, and that's time wasting. You're not accomplishing anything, and you're not doing anything for the pure joy. Happens a lot of times, like we're scrolling when we first wake up, and we've been in bed for 30 minutes, and now we're late getting to the kids to school.
Yes.
Or we're scrolling for 2.5 hours when we should be sleeping, and the next morning you don't even remember what you looked at.
I feel like you had cameras set up in my house in the last 24
I might
hours.
have, no.
Because it's very creepy. That is exactly my last 24 hours. My wife's in California. She's a lawyer. She's there on business. Solo dad right now. Had to pry myself. I didn't even have the TV on last night. Like the TV's off.
Right.
You know, sometimes it'll be on a show and it'd be like paused, and I'm just.
You're like, hold on, let me watch this video of this cat jump off of.
I'm like,
right.
I was like watching partial reels that were shows that I could just be watching the actual show on the TV, because I'm like, oh, I wonder what happens next. And I'm like, you could literally be watching this on the television.
You can watch The Walking Dead right now in its entirety.
Right, you could just be watching Goodfellas, right? And then like the data kicks in, and so Facebook's like, shit, Justin wants to watch Goodfellas. Let's just keep hitting him with Goodfellas reels. I was like,
the
okay.
algorithm works. So it's, when you boil it down, if you learn the 3 T's, you can understand your motivations for why you're using your device and when and for how long. And that way you can then modify your behaviors accordingly if you need to. So that is my first goal, is that any group that I work with, they hear me in their brain in the middle of the night going, which T am I doing right now? Is this a tool, a toy, or a time waster? And then you will start to slowly change your behavior. Because again, those Goodfellas reels aren't inherently bad. If that's what you do while you're, right, but if it's inhibiting what you need to be doing otherwise, then it's a time waster. So that, and you are not alone. I do this all the time. I mean, I'm the educator teaching people about these things, and I do these bad habits that I'm telling people about. So it's across the board. People deal with this.
It's very hard. When I first started practicing law, I always have to think back. They blocked Facebook on like the law firm's website.
Yep.
The iPhone just sort of fixed that problem right there. But everyone used to be like, oh, you can't get on Facebook. So they're like, we don't want you
wasting
your time. I always thought it was a little draconian. I always felt like, who's that really for? Like in those days, the staff was much older. So it was like basically just me, like the associates.
They are attacking
it was
me
a dick
personally.
move.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, so it's like 6 people here that you're actually targeting.
This is
okay.
ageism. Yeah.
It was. So I don't do that. If someone, I don't do that here. Nothing's blocked. I have to tell my IT team all the time. I was like, no, don't block that. Like I was shopping for something for my wife, and they were like, your page was blocked. I was like, well, no, everybody wears underwear here, okay? I was like,
We hope.
Or I wasn't even that. It was like a bathing. I don't even know what. Maybe it was from one of the kids. I don't know what it was for, but I remember it was like something being blocked. But I just laughed because from its inception in the business world, Facebook has been like, we don't want you in here. And it's because it's a huge time suck. You can be on it, even in those days without reels, when it was just the timeline or before the timeline, you could just be on it for so long and not even realize it.
Right. And it's built for that. Well, let's expand on that too, because this is another concept that I don't think people realize because it's never been explained to them. I ask this question in every session that I teach. Why was Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, any of these digital landscapes, why were they invented? Like, what is the reason Mark Zuckerberg invented Facebook?
I think if you ask him now, he will say he always had an intention of building an empire to be monetized. I don't know that I believe him.
That's it.
But I know that that's his answer.
If no one was making money off of these things, they would not exist.
Sure.
And most people say, oh, it's to connect with people, and it's to this and this, that. No, it's not. If there weren't a whole bunch of white dudes out in California making a whole lot of money off of our cat videos, it would not exist. So that, when you boil it down to that concept, it helps people put it in its place and say, this is literally just an app to sell me stuff.
Well, and it's self-feeding, right? Because of these influencers.
The algorithm and the influencers, and half the time you don't even know you're looking at an ad, and you are, because they've gotten so good at it. And again, I don't think it's nefarious. Money makes the world go round. So it is just another avenue for us to spend our money, because it happens to me all the time. Half of my outfit is stuff I didn't really need, but I saw an ad for on Instagram.
I mean, you could sell me anything on Facebook.
Right, and it's just like,
I buy stuff all the time.
You know what? I do need that thing that's going to help me chop my potatoes 2 seconds faster. And now I have another gadget in my cabinet that I don't need.
So much junk on Facebook I purchase, or like clothes, or and it all has to go back. Yeah, well, that is certainly true. It is. We talk about this a lot too. Is this sort of conspicuous consumption, and it's this self-feeding frenzy to consume that is marketed to you in 2 ways: through the tool, through the app, and then through these other individuals who are called influencers, who are paid by the tool app.
They're paid to make you like stuff.
Right.
They literally influence you to do something. That is why they are called influencers. And again, I don't think it's nefarious, because they've got bills to pay too.
Yeah, but it's unhealthy. When I was a kid, you'd have a poster of a Ferrari, because you'd want a Ferrari, right? So they're cool. And we're like, a Ferrari poster. But you weren't like actively shopping for a Ferrari, thinking like, maybe I could leverage my house. I mean, I can't tell you, plaintiff's lawyers, you see them all around town. They're in their $175,000 car, $200,000 car, and it's very silly. And I always think like, man, with $200,000 in cash, you could make so much more money.
You could do
if you put it in your business
good for yourself.
instead of a depreciable asset. But it's part of this consumption where it's like you have to appear to be successcul. You can't just go on vacation. You have to like post a picture of yourself.
If you don't take a picture
vacation.
and post it, it didn't happen.
Exactly. So it's unfortunate. I think it's great. Like I love being on social media. We spend money we're on Meta. Hey, if you like what you're seeing here, go ahead and click that. No, I'm kidding.
We're talking about this as people are going to be watching this and listening to this on.
For sure.
It is very meta.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But one fun thing I want you to do, and this is all of these different devices are now so smart that they talk to each other, meaning like it's because it's all connected through your phone number or your email, right? So you have your phone, your smart TV, your Alexa or whoever. I don't want to say it too loud in case there's one in
There's
here.
not one.
They're
She listens,
always
but
listening,
yeah.
right? Again, that's not nefarious. It is to sell us stuff, right? That's the whole point of all of this. I want you to do an experiment when you get home. Do you have like an Alexa? I'm sure like at your house you have Almighty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So my
The
husband
kids,
and
the
I.
kids will call. The kids will call people on it.
Yeah, and
they'll call, and they were trying to call the Easter Bunny.
And
I was like, oh, this is going to go downhill fast.
Did it work?
I don't.
Did
We
someone
shut it
answer?
down. I started
Okay.
unplugging stuff. I'm like, shut the power off to the house, you
Yeah.
know, because I was like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, it was.
So do
They
this
just got 'em
when
back.
you get home. Think of something that like you don't have that you would never purchase in a
Right.
million years. Like for us, we do not have pets. I want a dog very badly, but my husband won't let me get one because he doesn't want me to be happy. He does, but we travel a lot. It's not logical for us to have a pet,
Yeah.
so we
talked
don't.
about it. Sure.
But I was like, let's do this experiment. Let's just start talking about this imaginary pet that we have in front of these devices. I kid you not, the next day,
Petco.
ads that have never come up before on my Facebook, our smart TV, our Alexa, everything was about animals, or specifically dogs. We don't have a dog. There is no reason for us to buy dog food, allergy medicine, pet toys, anything.
Right.
And
It's creepy.
it's the machine that it says, oh, hold on, Katie and Michael just talked about this mini Dachshund that Katie wants. Let's start throwing them ads for this and maybe they'll get one and they'll keep buying the stuff.
Now, they maintain they're not doing that, right?
100%
like
that is what's happening.
Old Mark told Congress that wasn't real, but
No, that's
there's no way that they're not. I've actually been thinking about that a lot too. You know?
So let's think about it like this, and to me, this is the moment where it clicks for most adults, because most adults, especially our older generations, are like, I don't want the man having my information. It's like, honey, they've had it.
They can have
man's
my
had it.
information, but like,
Right.
you should ask me for it. Be a
We
gentleman.
don't,
Ask me for it first.
We don't pay for any of these apps, right? Like,
Right.
at their core, we don't have to pay to use Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever. How are we paying for it? It's with our information.
Sure.
And our information gets sold to all of these other companies to throw ads at us. Again, I don't think it's, Orson Welles nefarious scary, but it's just to make people money. And we are the consumers, and this is the new wave of consumerism, is through this. And I think once we realize that that's what's happening, we can compartmentalize and not fall victim to overspending or spending too much time online or feeling like I have to have this moisturizer and maybe my life will change because this
Right.
person told me it will. You kind of take it and put it in its box. And it makes it a little bit easier to think about.
What do you think is going to happen in 10 years? Do you think it's going to get better or worse?
I think we're going to be all like characters from the movie WALL-E.
Okay.
And like the moving chairs and, and that's a joke, but kind of not really. It's not going back unless something catastrophic like a zombie apocalypse or something happens, which
I'm down. Like I got all the
my family would
all
make
the
it.
tools for that. Yeah.
We're from
Spent 6
Ponchatoula.
months.
We're
So you're
we're
ready.
good.
Like
I say we.
strawberries, guns.
My dad's good.
Right.
As long as I'm where he is, we're fine.
Right.
But it's only showing it's going to keep moving more forward and more advanced. I mean, ChatGPT, you can open up a whole can of worms with that.
Right.
It's revolutionizing the way we work. And some people see it as an issue, some people don't. I use it all the time. It speeds up me answering emails like nobody's business. But, there are a lot of industries where people are scared that ChatGPT can take their jobs. And that is a very real fear. So it's just about us adapting and understanding our development as humans and how to work with this technology rather than, being consumed by the technology. But I think in 10 years it's going to be even more so. Because think about 10 years ago from now.
Right.
TikTok did not exist. TikTok's now $1 billion industry.
Yeah, we spend money on TikTok.
Yeah, it's so in 10
if
years.
You're seeing this on TikTok.
Who knows what's going to happen,
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Yeah, well, that's true.
And
That's a
again,
good
not
point.
bad. We just have to learn
It's not
and
great,
make it work
but-
for us.
Yeah, I would like to see, I would like to see myself as the leader of the business here have a healthier relationship with technology.
And that's good that you're self-aware, because a lot of people don't even see that they have roadblocks like that. And that's good, because we have become so dependent on these things. We don't want to admit, like, maybe I am looking at my phone a little too much.
Yeah, I definitely am. The only thing I can figure that could happen is I'll become like the next boomer generation where I won't understand the technology, and then maybe I'll get some of my time back.
Right.
You know, maybe in 20 years I'll be like, oh, I don't understand how to do that. I'll just stay here on my Facebook, which will be obsolete.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And the younger generations, there is a lot of literature that is coming out that Gen Z, Gen Alpha, while they do use this technology a lot of them, as they get older, are kind of opting away from the digital life. Like, there's a trend now where young people are wanting to go back to flip phones.
I've seen that.
And I think there is this kind of revolution where people are like, hold on, let's pump the brakes a little bit and let's maybe go back to the way that it was.
I love my Razor. Yeah.
My pink Razor, that was one of the best days of my life when I was 12 years old. I thought I was too cool for school because I had one of those. All it could do was call.
Yeah.
And the two people I called were my mom and dad, but you couldn't have told me nothing.
So it's interesting. What do you remember when you started texting?
Well, the first phone I ever got, I was in 8th grade, and I only got it because I was going to Washington, D.C. with my 8th grade class. So it was the first week-long trip I was going somewhere without my parents. And it was one of those Nokia brick phones.
I was in college when I had that, but yeah.
And the screen was this big, black and white. It had buttons, and I couldn't text on it. Like, my dad didn't pay for the text package.
Right, you had to
because
50 cents a text back then. Yeah.
So it's like, call us if you're dying, answer the phone when we call, that's it. And then, of course, it evolved. I really don't think I started texting until maybe like junior or senior year of high school.
What year would that have been? What year did you graduate?
So I graduated high school in 2009.
Okay. And I asked this for a specific reason, because I know when I started texting. And it was in 2005. And the reason it was in 2005 is I had sent a couple of texts before that, but that was not a mode of communication for us. It was more of like a novelty, like, oh.
It's like, ooh, isn't this fun?
Right.
Yeah.
2005, a catastrophic hurricane hit New Orleans, and the cell phone towers were all down.
Yep.
And even though I was safely in Texas, for an extended period of time, the phones were still bouncing, off of other towers, and you could not make phone calls.
Even if you
wanted to.
wanted
The only way I could communicate with my family or friends, really my family in those days, was via text. And that is when it started. And I had, I guess it wasn't Verizon then, so maybe it was Sprint. I think I had Sprint, and they sent me this like crazy bill from all these texts. And I called them up and said, hey guys, look, I mean, I'm a Katrina, evacuee, or I'm a refugee, or I'm a hero. Help me out. And they did. They're like, okay, we will. Like, we're gonna, but you have to get a text plan. We'll cut your bill down to whatever it was. And so I was like, okay, well, how much is that? And it wasn't that much. So I was like, might as well. And then ever since August, 29 of 2005, that has been a major mode of communication for us. So
that is wild, because I have memories of us doing exactly the same thing.
It's the only way to communicate.
We were in Texas. My family evacuated, and my dad, who worked at a bank at the time, he had to stay. And that was the only way we could communicate with my dad, unless he drove halfway to Baton Rouge to get cell service.
Maybe you could get our call out, yeah.
But isn't it weird now how we have evolved to where if I get a phone call, I'm like, who died? Hello?
Drives me crazy. Don't call me.
It's like, what? Don't interrupt me. How dare you? So it's so weird how it's kind of evolved.
Right. We text with our clients all day long. All day long. We use a software. The entire law firm, it's up on my phone, it's up on the screen, and all day long our clients text us. They don't want us calling either. Everybody, they don't want to be bothered.
Alexander Graham Bell would be so disappointed in all of us, all his hard work.
So, well, they're telling me that I've gone too long, but thank you so much for coming on the show. I love this topic. I love being able to discuss it with you. It has huge implications for business and for family and for personal wellness and everything, but Tell our listeners where they can find you.
So I'm everywhere. I'm Kati LeBreton. So I have my personal socials is Kati the Redhead on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. But my digital habit service is the Redhead Method, and you can find information on that at theredheadmethod.com. I also host a podcast with my little brother called The Big Bad Boot. It is not professional at all. It is a comedy podcast about the state of Louisiana, so don't go there looking for help. But that is the Big
Same.
Bad Boot. And again, I want people to use these digital spaces and places in a positive way, not totally cut them out of our lives, but just use them a little more positively. And you can learn about that at theredheadmethod.com.
Great. I'm going to check it out.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much. Thanks for coming. Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.